Right, good morning to you. How are you? It's Sunday morning. It is the 8th of January 2017. My name is Richie Allen. This is a live programme, of course. It's approaching 11 a.m. GMT as we do this live. You might be getting it a bit later than that. Hope you've had a great weekend thus far. A lot has happened over the weekend. A lot to talk about in this programme, as well as looking through the British broadsheet and tabloid Sunday newspaper. Some interesting stories in there as well. As usual, if there's something you'd like to say to me during the next 40 to 45 minutes, because it's a news show, this, about 45 minutes or thereabouts, simply tweet it to @RichieAllenShow. That's @RichieAllenShow. You can also email Richie at richieallen.co.uk. I prefer you tweet, though, because as we take this never-ending website changeover, email is a bit scatty for me right now anyway. Sunday View is about to begin right now. Thanks for tuning in.
For critical information ignored by the mainstream media, log on to davidicke.com/headlines now.
Broadcasting live from the great city of Manchester, England. This is the Richie Allen Show on davidicke.com.
And as I said already, I'll say it again, you're welcome to it. Thanks for tuning in. What's it like out? Kind of grey, misty, miserable, drizzly type weather. But that's Manchester, isn't it? That is Manchester. We're broadcasting live on davidicke.com. I always say this on Sunday View, but I will always say it. I will continue to say it. Most of, if not all of the subjects, the stories that I cover in the next 40 to 45 minutes are covered in depth at davidicke.com/headlines. Get on there. Okay? We're live on Fab Radio 2 in Manchester and the TuneIn app. And it's only a week to go. In fact, it was the week yesterday to the worldwide wake-up tour, David Icke and Entourage. It's not a huge entourage, in case you start getting ideas. David and Jamie and the crew from the worldwide wake-up tour will be in the city probably in the next couple of days ahead of next Saturday's event at the Apollo Theatre, which is sold out. There are still, though, a few tickets available for the Helix Theatre in Dublin the following Saturday, which is the 21st of January. Can't recommend it highly enough. I always say the books are vital, and the books really are vital. They're fantastic to read them, and then, as I do, use them as a reference guide going forward. The books are fantastic. There's something else, though, when you're in the room with a researcher and a lecturer and a teacher like David Icke for so many hours, looking at that audio-visual presentation. For anybody going to see it next weekend who's never witnessed anything like that before, it's going to be, I shouldn't say a life-changing experience, because how do I know what you're going to think of it? But it certainly was for me when I saw it in Wembley a few years ago for the first time. Obviously a very different presentation back then. It evolves all the time. Right, tweets coming in already about Israel. Now, I am going to talk in depth today about news that Israeli diplomats have been caught red-handed by Al Jazeera, basically trying to destroy the careers of senior British politicians. Now, for those of you who listen to programmes like this, for those of you who followed David and his work for over 25 years, none of this will be new, right? Or it won't be surprising anyway. But it's massively important. Going to talk about that in a few minutes' time. Before that, we'll have a cursory look through the British tabloid newspaper and broadsheet newspaper Sunday papers and their headlines. Shall we do that? Let's have a look at that. Most bizarre headline of the day goes to The Sun on Sunday. The headline is, Brit man, I'm 4 months pregnant. Apparently a man who was born a girl 20 years ago is the first British man to reveal he is pregnant. I didn't read the story because I don't want to, but I'm guessing if the chap was born a girl 20 years ago, he's a transgender and has possibly had surgery, maybe has, maybe hasn't, now is pregnant. I wonder why you'd want to, if you're born a girl and then you feel that you're a man, and that's understandable. I have no issue with that. This is the way it is, and you want to live as a man. Why would you then want to get pregnant? Don't understand that, really. But then again, I haven't read in depth I haven't read that particular story in depth anyway. The Star on Sunday is the only British paper going with the airport massacre in Florida. Maybe that's down to deadlines. Maybe that's down to the times that papers go to print. I don't know. But I'm going to read you something. Just before I look at the papers, I'm always doing this, jumping backwards and forwards. A friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, and a big supporter of the independent media in general, is a wonderful woman called Patricia Braunschweiler. Now, Patricia is Irish-American, living in Switzerland these days. She's been following the Fort Lauderdale airport massacre. Now, I don't know if you know what's happened. You might not know. You might have woken up. You might have been out on the tear yesterday, out on the Rantan, out on the Raz. You might have had a few Bacardis, a few vodkas. You might know. Esteban Santiago is accused of opening fire at Fort Lauderdale airport, killing 5 people and injuring 6 others. He's in custody and he's charged with carrying out an act of violence at an international airport resulting in death. He also faces lesser weapons charges. He faces the death penalty. Okay? Been following this story over the weekend? You have, you haven't, you might do, you might not. There's a lot of anomalies. There usually are in these stories. And my friend Patricia posts on her Facebook page, and I'll read it verbatim. A few thoughts, writes Patricia. Did this person have a return ticket? ? Did anyone think it was just a little strange that this person only checked in a case for his automatic weapon and no baggage? Just wondering. Good night, friends. The man accused of shooting 5 people to death Friday at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport walked into an FBI office 2 months ago in a very agitated state and told agents the government had taken over his mind. And that's according to law enforcement sources. This is Patricia's post on her Facebook page. Patricia points out that Jesse Davis, the chief of the Anchorage Airport Police and Fire Department, said the suspect checked only a case for his semi-automatic handgun and no other luggage. You know, Manchurian candidate, says Maria Heller, the great broadcaster Maria Heller. How many times has, over the years, programs like this spoken about people who claimed to hear voices and who claimed that they were being influenced or that they were being manipulated by the government or by intelligence agencies? Because that's what he says. He said he was hearing voices and that he was being controlled by a US intelligence agency. He's an Iraq war veteran. I have a feeling we might be talking a bit about that on the Richie Allen show in the next couple of days. Crazy, isn't it? And the media just swallows it all, regurgitates what they are told by these intelligence agencies and by the police. Nobody asks any questions. So that's the Fort Lauderdale shooting. Happened on Friday, of course. Would have been Friday evening here. Mr. Santiago, 26, is in custody. He faces the death penalty if he is tried and found guilty. Unbelievable story, huh? As I said, the only paper going with that on their front page today is the Star on Sunday, because a British woman was one of the victims. That's in the Star. Now, the Sunday Times leads with a claim that Britain's former ambassador to the EU, Sir Ivan Rogers, you might remember, this guy quit, said that he was being put under all sorts of pressure because he had a more pragmatic approach to dealing with EU ministers, that he wasn't all, you know, he wasn't indifferent, he was saying, to the will of the British people, but he also had to be aware of the sensibilities of dealing with EU diplomats, and you had to have a common sense approach to negotiating your way out of the EU. He wasn't in favour of leaving the European Union, this guy, at all. Anyway, he resigned. Now, the Sunday Times says that he actually held secret talks with David Cameron before Christmas, where they were talking about Theresa May behind her back, saying that she was failing to plan for the risk of a disorderly Brexit. He accused ministers of muddled thinking. He's a Europhile, this guy. That was in the Sunday Times today. All right. Now, in the Observer The Sunday Observer, a Canadian official warns that Britain risks a catastrophic Brexit because the government is so dismissive of the concerns of trade experts. Who are these trade experts? Of course, the Sunday Observer doesn't say who they are. Now, the Canadian official is a guy called John Langrish. He helped to negotiate a trade deal between the EU and Canada, which took more than a decade. He believes the British government could take just as long because of the complexities involved. This is a massive lie, this. But I'm not going to get into it right now. Said a lot about it last week. Shouldn't take more than a few days. We know this. Now, the Sunday Express says that a man called Ted Malloch, Professor Ted Malloch, who has been named as Donald Trump's new ambassador to the European Union, the Sunday Express is saying this guy supported Brexit. And this guy, Ted Malloch, the new US ambassador to the EU, this guy believes Britain will be moved to the head of the queue when it comes to negotiating a new trade deal with the United States. No country invests more in the UK than America. Spoke about all this last week again. By the way, this guy Malloch is a friend of Nigel Farage. The Sunday Mirror goes with 7,000 hospital beds are lost under the Tories. It cites, does the Sunday Mirror, official figures showing the number of acute beds that have closed since 2010. The NHS, dear listener, and I must point out, maybe I don't point out often enough, these are my opinions. They're just my opinions, okay? I'm not claiming facts here. These are my opinions based on a little bit of experience and on predictions made by some of the great guests who come on this programme. This is all about the deliberate destruction of the NHS. It's what Ike calls problem, reaction, solution. Destroy the NHS. Those people who need it badly will absolutely go doolally. Great Geordie term. Because that's what they will do as they see their health service being destroyed. They will demand something is done about it, and the government will provide the privatisation solution, which is happening already. Unbelievable. Now, the official figures cited by the Mirror show that the government plans to save £20 billion over the next 5 years, and one of the ways it will save this money is by disappearing hospital places out of existence. Chris Moulton, he's a spokesman for the Royal College of Emergency Medicine, and a doctor, told the Sunday People hospitals are at rock bottom and we can't afford any more cutbacks. Plenty of cutbacks for health, plenty of money for wars, plenty of money for foreign aid, which goes to Egyptian, is it Egyptian or was it Ethiopian girl bands? I think it was an Ethiopian girl band. Yeah, marvellous. That's in the... Now, for the Mail on Sunday, the scandal is all about... No, that's the Mail on Sunday talking a little bit about that story. We'll come to the NHS. In fact, we won't. We'll come to the Mail on Sunday's main story now in a minute. Right. The Sunday Telegraph. Let's move on and get serious. Theresa May has revealed in the Sunday Telegraph her vision for the shared society, as she declares that government has a duty to intervene and correct burning injustices in modern Britain. Writing exclusively in the Telegraph, May said that government shouldn't just get out of the way, and she insisted there is more to life than individualism and self-interest. So the article allegedly gives a very detailed insight into what May's social reform agenda is going to be. Okay? It says that David Cameron's Big Society, which focused on getting charities to help tackle inequality, and Margaret Thatcher's claim there is no such thing as society, are both rejected by May. May outlines an unashamed pitch for why governments should intervene in markets that are not giving consumers the best deal. And to quote her directly, May writes in the Sunday Telegraph, "It goes to the heart of my belief there is more to life than individualism and self-interest." She continues, "The social and cultural unions represented by families, communities, towns, cities, counties and nations are the things that define us and make us strong. Now, this is utter garbage, right? You know this as well as I do. And you know what's really going on here. It also does, this article in the Telegraph, indicate May's determination to rebrand the Conservatives as the party of the working class, which is a load of nonsense as well. She's going to give a speech tomorrow where she'll get into this in more depth, apparently. She writes over and over again that the vision she's speaking about amounts to creating the shared society. So how do you define that? Well, she defines it by saying, again, doesn't just value our individual rights, but focuses rather more on the responsibilities we have to one another, blah, 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 blah. This is incredibly sinister. Why is it sinister? Because what she's talking about is the regulation of everyday lives. That's what she's talking about. The rights of everyone as opposed to the rights of the individual. You know, for us to succeed, she's saying we all need to think like this, we all need to act like that. And this shared society, I believe, will include in it, this agenda, a version of the Scotland Named Person Act. They're going to talk about struggling families and poor families and how children are not getting educated within the home and how we need to get involved in that and how we need to intervene. This is, you know, another leg, another step forward in the forced adoption agenda. That's where this is really going, this. The rights of everybody as opposed to the rights of the individual. You won't have inalienable rights as an individual if these lunatics get their way. You'll have to think, act, and do whatever it is that the shared society says you have to do. Now again, this is not original thinking by me. Many of my guests, learned men and women, have spoken about this for years. You can't eat these things. You can't read this material. You can't go here at certain times because it's not in everybody's best interests. You can't say no to a smart meter because it's not in the best interest of everybody else. This is where we're going, you see. And they say it's about tackling inequality. What monumental bollocks. It's got nothing to do with that. It's about the totalitarian tiptoe becoming the totalitarian footprint right in your living room. I'm sure we'll pick that up in the week's programmes as we go along. 17 minutes past the hour. My God, this is going to go longer than 45 minutes. Now to the biggest story of the day. The Israeli plot to take down Sir Alan Duncan, the Deputy Foreign Secretary, the Deputy Foreign Minister. Astonishing video. This is the Sunday Mail. This is the Sunday Mail headline. Israel plot to take down Tory minister. Astonishing undercover video captures diplomat conspiring with rival MP's aide to smear Deputy Foreign Secretary. I'm going to read you from the Sunday Mail. Now, this is not a Sunday Mail story. This is Al Jazeera, but the Mail are reporting on it. So I'm going to read you a bit of this. The Israeli embassy made a shocking vow to take down Boris Johnson's Foreign Office deputy, a secret film reveals today. The bombshell footage, covertly filmed in a London restaurant and obtained by the Mail on Sunday, shows a senior diplomat making the astonishing threat to target Sir Alan Duncan. Extraordinarily, he is egged on by a senior aide to another Conservative minister, Robert Halfon. The video comes in a film claiming to expose the way that the Israeli government has infiltrated both the Conservative and Labour parties via its embassy in the UK using secret cash and covert support. Further footage in the film shows the Israeli diplomat, intelligence expert Shai Massot, telling senior Labour MP Joan Ryan that he has obtained more than £1 million to pay for sympathetic Labour MPs to visit Israel. He mocks crazy Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn and his weirdo supporters. Now, it emerged last night that Israeli Ambassador Mark Regev had made a full apology to Sir Alan for Massot's completely unacceptable comments. And a spokesman for Boris Johnson said the Israeli ambassador has apologised and made it clear to us that these comments do not represent the views of the Israeli embassy or government. That's all right then. Sure be Jesus, no bother. They've apologised. I was thinking this morning, the British people might just expect the announcement of an inquiry, right? You might expect a proper inquiry into the conduct of Israeli diplomats in the UK and how Israel wields influence here, bribes, cash payments, God knows what else. But no, the Foreign Office says Israel has apologised, that's the end of it. What would happen, would you imagine, if it was the embassy of any other country? I would guess those diplomats would be expelled, but not Israel. Now, Maria Strizzolo, she was the British civil servant talking to this Israeli guy. She's a stalwart of the conservative Friends of Israel. She loves Israel. And the money she receives from the Israelis too, I guess she loves that pretty much as well. Now, she's at dinner with this guy, Shai Massot. He's the senior Israeli diplomat. Got to say congratulations to Al Jazeera for their outstanding journalism here. It's their film. Now, listen to their report. You might struggle to hear what's being said, but I'll fill in the gaps when we come back. This is the report by Al Jazeera. It's quite staggering, this. Not in terms of we didn't know this goes on, but that they've been caught red-handed. Try that again. Here we go.
This is Maria Strizzolo, a British civil servant active with the Conservative Friends of Israel. She's a longtime confidant of MP and Conservative Minister Robert Halfon. She's at dinner with Shai Massot, a senior political officer with the Israeli embassy in London, who enjoys diplomatic immunity.
And the last position that I applied for, that there is a slightly chance I will get it, actually, is to be head of the Foreign Affairs Department of the Intelligence Department in Israel. I'm not a career diplomat.
Their dinner party also included an undercover reporter from Al Jazeera's investigative unit who captured a most undiplomatic conversation.
Can I give you some MPs that I suggest that you would take down?
Well, if you look hard enough, I'm sure that there is something that we're trying to hide.
Yeah, I have some MPs.
Well, let's talk about it.
Okay. No, she knows which MP they want to take down. That's the question.
Yeah, it's good to remind me.
The Deputy Foreign Minister.
He's referring to Sir Alan Duncan, a minister in Britain's Foreign Office, who has publicly opposed Israeli settlements on occupied Palestinian land.
And he wants to take down Sir Alan Duncan, right? And this Maria Rizzolo, this treacherous bitch, right? Because that's all she is, should be arrested for treason. She's conspiring with an Israeli agent to find something on Sir Alan Duncan to discredit him. And she's caught doing this red-handed. Caught by the short and curlies. You'd imagine there'd be outrage, right? Outrage. Well, not really. A little bit of condemnation. Some senior Tory MPs have condemned it. Former Tory Minister Desmond Swayne said that it was disgraceful. To talk about taking down a British minister is very sinister, he said. There is anger, he went on, in the US at Russia's meddling in its democratic process. No such foreign meddling should be allowed in the UK. Crispin Blunt, Conservative chairman of the Commons Foreign Affairs Select Committee, who's also mentioned in the film by Massot, he said the comments were outrageous, but wait for it. The Conservative Friends of Israel have spoken up. Lord Stuart Pollack, or Pollack, however you pronounce it, he's the senior director of the Conservative Friends of Israel. He said last night, it is utter nonsense to assert that any UK political party is taken over by any organisation. That's the Conservative Friends of Israel. The Friends of Israel groups, they do their job of educating their members about the complicated issues in the Middle East. The Israeli embassy represents Israel in a professional manner. So, Lord Pollack should be fired as a traitor to the United Kingdom. So should Mary, what's her name again? Maria, not Maria Rizzolo, right? Maria Strizzolo. Sacked. Traitors. And nobody wants to challenge that. Imagine British MPs and government ministers belonging to a group called Friends of Israel. That should be an outrage on its own. Whose interests are you acting in? Your constituents or the Zionist-occupied government, the apartheid state of Israel? Who are you working for? Now, the Andrew Marr Show broadcasts every Sunday morning. We feature it all the time because it's the biggest and most watched political television show on Sundays. They have a newspaper review segment. It happens before Marr interviews his guests in depth. So they have a newspaper review to start off. There are always 3 people reviewing the newspapers. Today, the journalist Julia Hartley-Brewer, Steve Richards was there, I think, and Sir Craig Oliver. Right? One of the stories they dealt with was this story that the Israelis were trying to destroy the careers of senior British politicians. Do you want to hear how this issue was dealt with by Andrew Marr and his guests at the BBC today? This is how it went down. Have a listen.
Let's move on to another really big story, which is the Mail on Sunday story, which comes from an Al Jazeera interview taped in a London restaurant with an Israeli diplomat. Craig, so there it is. Let's take down Boris's deputy is the headline.
I mean, on one level...
Why not? Let's take down...
Well, the first thing to say is this is a classic piece of Simon Walter's brilliant mischief-making. He does it so well at the Mail on Sunday and comes up with these scoops. On one level, it's an extremely chilling thing. You're hearing a senior diplomat say that they want to take down a senior foreign minister. There's somebody who works for a Conservative minister who seems to be colluding in it. But on another level, it actually is almost semi-comic. When you actually read the exchange...
it's a right good laugh, eh?
Saying, can I give you the names of MPs I suggest you take down? The aide is saying, if you look hard enough, I'm sure there's something they're trying to hide. And then a little later, the diplomat says, a little scandal maybe. Don't tell anyone about this meeting. Who would tell? Well, you're being filmed and recorded as
it is happening. Completely the thick of it, isn't it?
Well, it feels like they've been watching too many episodes of House of Cards, but actually found themselves in an episode of the thick of it.
There's a wonderful quote from the Israeli embassy saying this doesn't represent the views of the Israeli government.
It's all a laugh.
Seriously, I mean, this is crossing a lot of lines here.
It is.
For a diplomat to try to destroy the reputation of quite a senior British minister.
And they still have the Russians infiltrating the American elections.
I think what you've seen here is that basically when these kind of stories break, government just want to shut it down.
Well, it's very
embarrassing.
Interesting. They've apologised. The government said that's absolutely fine. In the old days, the ambassador would have been kicked out of the country for this.
Well, it depends which country you're dealing with, doesn't it? And actually, the reality, sensitivities of dealing with it.
Wow.
Kind of thing. But the reality is...
Holy Jesus.
For the Israelis and for the government, they just want to shut it down. But a great scoop for the Mail on Sunday.
Wow. What... and the ignoramus there, whose name is, what's his name? Steve Richards, world-class ignoramus. World-class ignoramus. It has nothing to do with the Mail on Sunday. Al Jazeera brought this guy down. If indeed they did bring him down. Julia Hartley-Brewer thought it was hilarious. Oh, what next? The Russians trying to infiltrate the US elections. Some laugh, huh? What a laugh. At least Marr asked the question, to his credit, the one I posed earlier. Why haven't they been thrown out? I mean, the US expelled all those diplomats from Russia on a pack of lies, I might add. I can't overstate. And they tell you, when you're learning your trade, when you're learning to produce and present programs, don't oversell something. You know, the audience isn't stupid. They understand it. Don't oversell it. I can't help myself. This is a terrorist supporting apartheid state of lunatics, Israel. A country that tortures children, that has the biggest open-air prison in the world. Psychotic Zionists running that country in Tel Aviv. I'm not talking about Jewish people now. I'm talking about the Zionist nutcases. They are talking about finding scandals to destroy the life of and the career of senior British politicians, and the fucking newspaper reviewers on the BBC think it's funny. Nothing to see here. Move on. Peter Oborne, formerly of The Telegraph, made a brilliant documentary for Channel 4 News a few years ago. He made it for Dispatches on Channel 4 called Britain's Israeli Lobby. I'm just going to play you 55 seconds of it. You'll hear two voices first. Sir Richard Dalton, who was one time British ambassador to Iran. Then you'll hear Peter O'Byrne himself, as the journalist and the man who made the documentary, as I said. This was made back in 2009, and it was an absolutely heroic piece of filmmaking by O'Byrne and by Channel 4. Sadly, you don't see too much of it these days. This is them, again, a snippet of inside Britain's Israeli lobby. Let me get that right. And it's on YouTube, by the way. After you finish listening to this, the entire documentary is on YouTube. Inside Britain's Israeli lobby. First Richard Dalton, former ambassador to Iran, then Peter O'Byrne.
What's unique about the pro-Israeli lobbies is that they have such good access to politicians. They often operate behind the scenes, and they have primary regard, even though they may come from Britain, not to the interests of the British people, but to a mixture of what they see as British interests, but the interests of another country.
Aside from raising cash, some of the pro-Israel lobbies in Parliament also pay for and arrange trips to Israel. They have sent almost as many MPs and candidates on trips to Israel as have been made by all MPs to the United States and Europe combined over the last 8 years. 2 years ago, the CFI took 20 parliamentary candidates to Israel. When they got back, 10 of them received donations totalling £30,000 from CFI sponsors. But they don't like to talk about it, at least not in public. One Tory MP privately taunted me to make a film about the pro-Israeli lobby. He said, "You don't have the guts, they're the biggest lobby in Westminster, and it's a big story." But when I went back to this courageous individual and say, "Hey, come on television and tell us about it," he ran a mile. One Tory frontbencher was so paranoid that he insisted I didn't just turn off my mobile phone, but take out the battery in case we were being bugged.
This is the reality. This is the reality. It's the reality for people whose eyes are open and who have an understanding because they've been following independent media sources for years. It's the reality for those people, but this is the reality that the vast majority of the people in the United Kingdom have to face up to. They live in a fascist dictatorship run by avowed, unashamed Rothschild Zionists. This is it. This is the reality. And it's been laid bare today by Al Jazeera, reported on in the Mail on Sunday. Here you have a guy saying we've got £1 million to get as many Labour MPs on a trip to Israel as we possibly can. I want you to bring down Sir Alan Duncan, and he's speaking to a treacherous scumbag called Maria Strazzoli, who says to him, rather than, "I'm absolutely disgusted by what you just said, I'm going to end this dinner and this meeting now, and I'm going to return to my office and report this to my seniors." No, she says, well, if you look hard enough, you can find dirt on anybody. Treason. Treason. Colluding with a foreign state against the interests of your own government and your own people, quite simply, is the definition of treason. Arrested? She won't even be spoken to. You're with the Richie Allen Show, Sunday View for Sunday, January 8th, 2016. Going to take a very quick break. When we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about who hacked the DNC emails. Back in a minute.
Have you lost access to important data from a computer hard drive, mobile phone, or other storage device? Maybe you have a broken hard drive containing years of information, or a smartphone that no longer works from which you'd like the pictures, movies, and chats recovered. If you would like to recover data from any type of digital device, including desktop and laptop computers, external hard drives, cameras, smartphones, NAS, and RAID servers, then contact Data Clinic today at dataclinic.co.uk now.
There's a place high in the mountains of Spain, a sanctuary where souls gather from all around the globe to learn about themselves and experience powerful changes in the way we see our world. They become awakened to their gifts and their power to heal others. Become part of this ever-growing worldwide family of unique, pure energy healing practitioners. Discover how amazing you truly are. Go to www.markbayerski.com. It could just change your life forever.
Do not risk putting another pound in your bank account until you've heard this message. It's Jim Rickards here, best-selling author of Currency Wars and The Death of Money. But today I'm urging you to claim a free copy of my brand new book, The Road to Ruin. Visit theroadtoruin.co.uk for full details now. Inside, I uncover the financial elite's secret ICE-9 plan to take full control of your hard-earned cash. To see how, visit theroadtoruin.co.uk right away. It's not too late to prepare. Claim your free copy at theroadtoruin.co.uk today.
Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.
And you're very welcome back to the program. Another one of the big stories that is, you know, we spoke about quite a bit last week. Ongoing in terms of, it's not going away anytime soon. The US President, Donald Trump, has continued to weigh in on the claims made by US intelligence agencies that the Russian Federation and Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, have or had hacked the Democratic National Committee emails, had hacked Podesta, and had influenced or sought to influence the outcome of the US presidential election, of course, which Trump won. Now, the BBC reported yesterday, and I'll read you from the BBC. Donald Trump has posted a series of tweets condemning those who oppose good relations with Russia as stupid people or fools. Trump vowed to work with Russia to solve some of the many pressing problems and issues of the world. That last bit was a direct quote. He tweeted, to solve some of the many pressing problems and issues of the world. Trump's comments came after an intelligence report said Russia's president even had tried to aid a Trump election victory. Trump went on to say, and he's maintained this all along, the Democrats were to blame for gross negligence in allowing their servers to be hacked. Now, I must remind you, dear listener, no US law enforcement agency has forensically examined the DNC servers. Would you believe that? You have to believe it because it's true. Nobody's examined these servers. Okay? So in a series of tweets yesterday, Trump said that having a good relationship with Russia was no bad thing. Only stupid people or fools would think that it was bad. What's going on here? Well, William Binney, you've heard of William Binney before, is a former technical director at the NSA. And a whistleblower, of course. He's the latest in a string is right, of former intelligence operatives, senior intelligence operatives, to come out and say that there is no evidence whatsoever that the Russians hacked the DNC emails. So here's William Binney speaking with RT.
You know, if you have high confidence, you know, that means you don't really know for sure. They should have included at least some evidence of what they're asserting, and they haven't done any of that. They're making these kinds of decisions now without fundamentally finding out what really is true and what the facts basically are. And they're not really focusing on the facts or truth. They're basically looking at speculation, fabrication, and hyperbole, basically.
It's important to remember that. That's exactly right. We believe, we strongly believe, we believe, we believe, we believe. This is the language. Now, former UK diplomat, and also, of course, whistleblower Craig Murray. I think Murray summed it up better than most. Listen to Murray again speaking with RT, this time with RT UK.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, WikiLeaks have been absolutely plain, and I know that this didn't come, the intelligence which WikiLeaks received didn't come from Russian hacking. The report makes assertions. It asserts, for example, that President Putin must have ordered the hacking. It doesn't prove that the hacking or the election influencing happened, but it says if it happened, he must have ordered it. And then the evidence it gives that he ordered it is the fact that after the election, Russia did not question the validity of the election process. And that in some way is supposed to prove that Putin ordered the process be hacked. It's nonsense.
Yeah, it is nonsense. You know what I was thinking yesterday? If the election was swung by a third party, well, if it was, who benefited from it? Who benefited from Trump's election? Israel. I mean, obviously Israel. Trump is an arch-Zionist, right? A close friend and confidant of Benjamin Nutcase Netanyahu. So why not investigate Israel? Now, I'm joking, by the way. The election wasn't hacked by any outside actor. There's no evidence to support that. So it wasn't Israel, wasn't Russia. Never happened. Yes, emails have been hacked, but not by foreign governments. But the spooks in the United States won't quit with this one, no matter how ludicrous and how ridiculous they look. The former NSA and CIA chief Michael Hayden, General Michael Hayden, he spoke to Sky News over the weekend and said that Trump is trash-talking the intelligence community. He said this is unprecedented. He spoke with Sky's US correspondent Amanda Walker. Listen very carefully to what this guy says, because it's absolutely staggering.
It leaves us in a very dark place. Frankly, now, I don't want to be apocalyptic about this. I'm kind of looking at this through the lens of the American intelligence community. That's my best shot. That's a high confidence judgment. And he said, take a hike.
That's my best shot. That's a high confidence judgment, Mr. Trump. It must be the Russians. And Trump said, take a hike. What would you expect him to say? Where's the proof? Did you hear what the idiot said there? He said, you're going to Trump going, that's my best shot. That's a high confidence judgment. Where's the proof? Where's the proof? We cannot convict people. We cannot convict a shoplifter for stealing a bar of chocolate, let alone convict a state like Russia of committing a crime without evidence that proves it beyond a reasonable doubt. You heard William Binney say it. You heard Craig Murray say it. This is what we believe, Mr. President. This is our best shot. Fuck off. Where's the evidence? No evidence. There's none. This cretin continues. General Michael Hayden.
Wow, that's gonna reverberate throughout the community. If you find that high confidence judgments represent insufficient proof for you to move, then you should sell the antennas and let these kids go do something else.
Yes, why not? Fuck off and do something else. We charge you people with the most important job there is. The job of honourably and truthfully protecting the people of our countries. It doesn't get more important. So when you come along and say, this country's trying to kill us, or this country's doing that, you must have proof. We can't act on it. I think the guy over there across the street hates me and the future Mrs. Allen. I think he hates me. I think given a chance he'd do anything to impede my progress in life and to undermine me in the community. So I'll knock his fucking head off then. No! Where's the proof? Madness. We live in a mad world. Does he get asked the question by this presenter at all?
No.
So how unusual, how unprecedented is Donald Trump's very open and public derision and dismissal of the intelligence agency's conclusions?
Yeah, and that's important to realize. That's what's new, not the adjustment we have to make because there's a new president. We do that every 4 or 8 years. What's different here is that the president-elect, for his own reasons, has decided to put this out and make it public. In American football, we've got this ritual we call trash talk, in which...
he goes on then to say that Trump is trash talking. It's insane. Mazrot tweets, and there's been a lot of tweets, mostly tweets bidding us good morning, by the way. Mazrot tweets, why have so many people forgotten that the DNC hack was a leaked by Seth Rich, who lost his life for it? Yes. Raymond tweets, Raymond, how are you? I hope I'll see you next week at David Icke. The content of the hack is more important than the source. More hacking, please, says Raymond. Dean Smith tweets, inverted world, Israel and the Saudis are our friends. That's inverted, says Dean. He's right. Getting away with murder, ban fake news, while that's all the BBC spews. Absolutely right. Good morning, anti-fracking. Good morning, La Antenna. Good morning, James. Good morning, William. William Henderson tweeted me a picture. For those who don't believe that the NHS is being privatised today, for those who don't believe the NHS is being privatised, and then he sends me a picture taken today outside an NHS clinic in Whitechapel. And I've just retweeted that there. Of course, the NHS is being privatised. Of course it is. Madness. You have to believe us. You see, this is the way the intelligence communities work. You must believe us. These are high confidence judgments, man. Man, we've had a look at it, man, and this is what we think happened, man. It's high confidence. So when we say there's evidence of a massive plot to bring dirty bombs to New York City or California or DC, you must believe us. You must believe us. Some people are saying this is a post-truth world. I would argue it's a post-evidence world. Post-evidence world. We'll say whatever we want to you. We will shape your daily lives based on assertions made by us. We'll give you no proof. But we're very confident that we're right. 14 minutes to the top of the hour. Now, Nicola Sturgeon, Scotland's First Minister, has warned Theresa May she isn't bluffing. I'm not bluffing on the promise of a second referendum if Scotland is driven off a hard Brexit cliff. She told the Andrew Marr show today she felt the British Prime Minister had no plan in terms of her strategy for the UK leaving the EU. Now, since I've been on air, Theresa May has spoken to Sky News and a woman called Sophie Ridge, and May has said that she will, within the next couple of weeks, announce the Brexit negotiating plans. But anyway, Nicola Sturgeon pointed out that Scottish voters backed to stay in the EU by 62% to 38%. Sturgeon said she wants the UK to retain membership of the single market, the so-called soft Brexit option. This is just a snippet of Sturgeon speaking with Andrew Marr today.
It seems to me that the view in London is that Nicola Sturgeon is trying to call our bluff. And we can call her bluff. She cannot win an independence referendum in Scotland because of the economics, because of the border issue, because of the euro. It's all just bluff.
Well, they will be making a big mistake if they think that I'm in any way bluffing. Because if it comes to the point, 2 years after Scotland being told, the quote in the independence referendum was, Scotland, don't leave the UK, lead the UK. Here we are, we voted to stay in the EU. We were told that voting no was the only way we could stay in the EU. And we now face being taken out of the EU. Now that creates a much more fundamental question for Scotland. If on something as fundamentally important as the membership of the EU and the single market and all the implications that has for us, if we're going to be ignored, if our voice is going to be completely cast aside, our interests cast aside, then that can happen on anything. And we have to ask ourselves in Scotland, are we happy to have the direction of our country, the kind of country we want to be, determined by a right-wing Conservative government, perhaps for the next 20 years, or do we want to take control of our own future?
No, she wasn't in great form there, was she? She was in much better form before Christmas, though.
Do you know someone who's done something very fun, Davy-dozy this year? Nominate them and they could be in with a chance of having a very cranky Christmas.
Yeah, Jimmy Cranky. Again, and I'm not the first person to say this, where is the logic in saying we wanted the independence from the United Kingdom, we wanted Scotland to be an independent country, free of ties from London, free of regulation, free of laws, and free from governance from the City of London. We wanted to make our own way in the world. We wanted to do what we should do in the best interest of Scotland, in an independent Scotland outside the United Kingdom. But yet, we basically want to be bound by the rules and regulations written by corrupt, filthy, bent bureaucrats in Brussels. We want to have our budgets signed off by Brussels, by the European Central Bank, the European Union and the IMF. The madness of it. The sheer lunacy of it. Kenneth Clarke, the former Justice Secretary and former Chancellor, was on the BBC today as well. I'll spare you the clip. But he's the latest Europhile to tell the whopping great lie that the UK has to be in the single market. Nonsense. However, Conservative councillor Paul Miller said something you've heard me say 1,000 times on this programme. He said yesterday, who would want to upset the UK? Certainly not the Germans, for example.
Ian Duncan-Smith has just said yesterday negotiations will be ultimately dominated by the EU member states.
Well, if we let them. Now, a lot of the EU member states, and we can't mention who they are, I think it's a variable quantity, will still want to conduct trade with the UK. The classic one is Germany. Germany treat us as their best market for their cars, for instance, particularly the marques of BMW and Mercedes. They're not going to want to have any kind of hiccup in that kind of relationship. So you've got a very powerful member of the EU, some say the prime member of the EU, who will want to continue the trade.
Yeah, but how are we going to do that if we're heading for a hard Brexit, leaving the customs union, the single market? As Theresa May is, she's making immigration her red line. How do we possibly get that sort of special deal then? We can't actually have, cherry-pick different deals with different member states?
No, the member states will cherry-pick the deals with the UK. That's my view of it. If the immigration is and the movement of people is the red line, I say, OK, fine, do it. I still don't think individual EU nations will want to step out of a trade relationship with the UK. It's too important to them.
Of course they won't. As I've said to you 1,000 times, and I'm afraid I'm going to keep repeating it, the massive businesses, the massive corporations within those countries would murder their governments. And this idea it takes 10 years to negotiate a trade deal. Nonsense. It takes years to leave the European Union. Nonsense. Wipe the 1973 Act off the statute books. We're out. We're done. Good luck. Goodbye. You're not going to impose tariffs on our goods entering your country. There's going to be no queues of lorries. None of that garbage, because you sell far more to us than we sell to you. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Going to leave you with this from RT today. I mean, this is unbelievable. Campaigners, human rights campaigners, have been claiming over the weekend that Sandhurst, which is a famous British military academy for the wealthy elite to send their sons and daughters to go and train to be military officers so they can go and oversee the death and destruction of poor people all over the world. That's how it is. Sandhurst, the UK military academy, the Royal Military Academy, are training human rights abusers because new figures have emerged which show that Sandhurst has been paid millions and millions of pounds to train troops from Bahrain, and also from Afghanistan. You couldn't believe this, but then again, it's so crazy it couldn't be made up. Listen to this brief report from RT.
Campaigners are accusing Sandhurst of training human rights abusers in uniforms. Concerns were sparked after it emerged that countries with less than clean human rights records have been paying for their troops to go to the military academy. In the last 10 years, 74 countries have paid over £30 million for their troops to take part in the prestigious military courses. Around half of these countries are said to have a history of human rights abuses, including torture and mistreating civilians. Bahrain and Afghanistan have been two of the highest contributors, paying over £3 million combined. We contacted the Ministry of Defence for comment, and it said that it does all it can to promote human rights within its training.
Wait till you hear this now. Wait till you hear the statement from the Ministry of Defence. Human rights campaigners have proven that half of the 74 countries who have paid millions and millions of pounds to have their soldiers, their officers trained at Sandhurst, over half of them abuse, torture and illegally detain citizens. So the Ministry of Defence is contacted. This is their statement read out by an RT producer. You couldn't make it
training.
Up.
Sandhurst courses expose officers from other countries to UK policies and help promote British military values. including concepts of accountability, transparency, and respect for human rights. Much of our training is specifically designed to improve the approach of other countries to human rights, and all is delivered in line with strict security guidelines.
There you go. Listen, that's it for Sunday View. You couldn't make it up. I've been Richie Allen. Thanks very much for listening to the show. It will be podcasted very soon if you came in on the end of it, and it'll be on YouTube as well in about 90 minutes' time. So you might share that on social media. It's exactly 5 minutes to the top of the hour. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I think it's a pretty grim, dirty, misty old day weather-wise, but do get out and about. Get out, switch off that phone, switch off that television, that tablet, that laptop. Get out in the fresh air. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Look forward to speaking to you tomorrow, Monday, live at 8 p.m. GMT on The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com. That'll be live on Fab Radio. It'll be live on Alternate Current Radio as well. The TuneIn app as well on my own website, which is still under construction, but you can listen to the player there. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks again. Bye for now. Bye now.
Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.